Hey guys, and welcome to another First Impressions video, the video game series in which we look at a recently released game and I give you my first thoughts and impressions on it. Today we're looking at Dyflexion, which is your pretty much standard bullet hell shmup that features a spaceship with many different abilities and different bullet styles and stuff, and you go through an ever-changing verse to just try and beat your way through and defeat all the enemies. It's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward. There are some things that I do quite like about it, and there are some things that I really don't like about it. I want to preface this by saying that shmups and bullet hells really aren't my type of game, but it doesn't mean that I can't spot a good one when I see it. As always, we'll look through the options first, and then we'll jump straight into the actual game and show you what it's all about. Let's jump into it. Alright, so options then, or preferences for whatever reason that the developers decided to name it this. I'm not entirely sure why. There really isn't a lot here, but then it's a very simplistic game. The graphics are really nothing to shout home about. It's your standard side-scrolling shmup, you know? But there are some options to go through. You can have it on full screen, you can choose the resolution, the aspect ratio, VSync on or off, texture quality, and then your AA, which is actually a numerical value, and I can appreciate that, although it does only go up to 8 times. Your audio. You've got your simple music, sound, and master, and it is nice to see that the music volume is set at 60. With the sounds, it's obviously gone for this sort of like 80s type style, which is fine, but they could have still made it so that the audio quality was just simply better. It very much comes across tinny, and some of the sounds are quite impactful, especially when it starts to sound volume at 100%. So if you wear headphones, you could see yourself getting a headache from this game. I'm really not a fan of the sort of sound effects that they've gone for in the game. The soundtrack itself is okay, but I just feel like it needs touching up a little bit. The sounds need just a bit more quality in them, personally. Your controls, you've got keypad, gamepad, and you can reset to defaults there. You can change the player. Interestingly enough, it's another one of these games where you've got to have a profile in order to be able to access the options. Honestly, it should be an option into this, and the preferences should be a before, not an after you've loaded in. If this was a more graphically challenged game, or if this stressed your PC any, then sometimes getting into those options can be a hassle and your computer can struggle, which does lead itself to lower end machines not being able to play the games that you might otherwise be able to with a few graphics settings. So honestly, they should change that. And then your language. They've got a decent amount here. Again, it strikes me as a project. It doesn't strike me as a full release game. It strikes me as a project. When you look at the fact that the moon, for example, is really, really dodgily circle. The way that the flag looks kind of just put on there instead of being faded in and done properly. It just seems a little bit rough around the edges. But there are options there. They're not bad. Let's jump into the game and see how it plays. Okay then, so it does go off of there is no load. If you start the game again, you have to start from the beginning. I don't know if there's an autosave later on, but I died at the first bit, and it's made me go through the entire cutscene again, which isn't really ideal. They've tried to throw in a story here, and it doesn't really... People that play these games don't play it for lore, right? It's an arcade style, get as many points as possible, get through the runs, be kick-ass. They don't tend to care for story. It's nice that there's lore here, but honestly, it's not really needed. That being said, there is a survival mode, so you can always go in there. But you get your brief, which tells you about the mission that you're about to do. It gives you tips here, so that but again, if you've gone through the tutorial, and it will ask you if you want to go through the tutorial, these tips are they're not really that helpful. It already tells you stuff that you should in theory already know. Your map, it just shows you where you are and where you're going to be going. And then your armory. Now, I'm assuming you get points at the end of each round, which is why I've got a wonderful grand score of 0. And there are things that you can upgrade here incrementally. Nothing amazing, no different weapons or anything. It's just your bog standard cannon, laser, deflector, etc. A little bit lackluster here as well, to be honest. But it does one thing and it does it well. So let's jump into the game. Alright, we're in the game and you have a fully free moving, I think is the word that you would look for, spaceship. And straight away, even though we are only on novice, it does throw things at you straight away. You've got this weird deflection ability that you can use, and honestly you're going to be using that a lot. You're going to have to try and keep an eye on the bars at the bottom, because they're going to dictate how easily and how quickly you die. It's interesting. It's certainly an interesting idea, but the problem is that you only fire in a linear way. You can't turn around. You can't fly the same way that the enemies are flying, and it puts you at a massive disadvantage. And again, we're only on novice. This is the easiest one out of the lot of them, apparently. So you've got this weird sort of deflection ability that allows you to move out the way and fire your projectiles back, but it's on a constant use cooldown, as I'm going to call it from here on out, which means when you're not using it, you gain it back, and then the second you use it, it uses it up. There are some other issues with it in that when it starts doing this, it took me by surprise the first time when it goes from a fairly static background to a lot of movement really quickly. So if you're prone to epileptic fits, or if you're not really good at following things that move very fast without getting nausea or headaches and migraines and stuff, then this probably isn't going to be the game for you. It's very difficult, but it kind of feels unfairly so. You know, I don't mind a challenge, but the game very much comes across as unfair and is going to try everything in its power to beat you. You have very limited special weapons, you have very limited cannons and things like that, and again, they can only go straight up, whereas the enemies are able to dance around you and go in many different ways, which makes it very, very difficult indeed. And your health really isn't that high. You don't have a lot to work with, and you've got to hope that you can acquire some of the power-ups later on. And then, like I say, it starts you back at the start menu and you have to go through the entire thing again instead of just having a replay button. A replay level button is something that should be pretty standard in 2022. So there you are, guys. If you like your shmups, this might be for you. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Ciao, ciao.